will explain the concept and whatever the problems you have faced. For that 20 marks are given. The next criteria is project management skills, whether you are able to handle the deadlines given by the guide, are you able to work in a group. So on such parameters, the internal examiner or rather internal guide will assess you, and the 10 marks are given for the written communication. At the end of the 7th semester, you have to prepare a synopsis. For the oral examination, the criteria are more or less same. Few changes are there. Again, when you are presenting, when you are explaining the concept to the third person, that means external examiner, again he will check the concept and the problem definition, your project management skills, and presentation in the oral form. Okay, so that is about for the 7th semester. 50 and 50, total 100 marks are assigned in the 7th semester. For the 8th semester, 100 plus 100, so 200 marks are assigned for the project, 100 marks for the term work and 100 marks for the oral examination. And I have displayed the criteria on which you will be assessed for the term work and for the oral examination. The more weightage is given for the demonstration and for the thesis writing in oral and term work. Okay, these formats for the thesis writing and synopsis writing will be shared with you at the appropriate stages. Right now we will see the assignment and the selection of the project. So this is the basic idea of the whatever project defined by the University of Mumbai. Now these are the project domains, tentative project domains given by the project guide. There may be slight variation. You will receive the project domains given by the project guide in the next week. But these are the tentative project domains given by the project guide. Slight changes may be there, mostly the addition of the topics. Okay, addition of the areas, new areas explored by the various faculty members will be displayed over here. This I will share in the group in the MS team created by the Professor Sanjay Deshmukh. Okay, so you will get this thing in detail. Next, now about the project selection. What you will get in the next weeks is, this is just a sample I am explaining. You will get a list of the or rather a matrix where the faculty name will be there and their areas, and maybe in some cases the specific topics will be given. The topic will be given a code based on your the serial number and ABCD, something like that. Maximum 5 topics will be given or will be floated by the particular faculty members. Okay, so you will get a list of all the faculty members and topics proposed by the faculty members along with the unique code. Okay, what you have to do is, for the group and the topic formation, first of all you have to write down your division, G or H division, that means EXTC1 or EXTC2. You have to form the group. Maximum 4 students we are allowing, maximum 4 students, I'm repeating once again, maximum 4 students we are allowing in a group. Minimum 1 student can be there, so a single student can form his own group and can do the project. This year also we have 2 groups where 2 students are working individually, and they have done, I think, quite a good work. Then of course this form you have to submit. Now the signature of the students will not come over here because you will submit this form. I will share the Word format and you will fill the details and this thing. Then you have to give the code of a preferred project. Let's say you are preferring project 1B. Okay, so this 1B code you have to write over here and you have to submit this form maybe by the next Saturday. Okay. Okay. After this, how the process goes. So let's say few students, some of the students or more than, let's say 8 groups have submitted a particular code. Let's say 1B. Okay. So what we'll do is all those forms selecting or preferring 1B will go to the particular guide. Guide will check the list of the students and guide will select the students for the given topic. Okay, Once guide select that particular group, that group will be assigned that topic, and that topic will not be applicable for the, or it will not be available in the next round. Okay, so we are looking at the transparency of the project and the simplicity, that if the guide is ready to work with you, and even students are comfortable with the guide for the given topic, that topic will be given to you. Maximum topics or maximum groups that can be allotted to a particular faculty member may be either 2 or 3, depending upon the hierarchy in the department. Let's say if you are interested in machine learning, okay, and let's say most of the students have submitted machine learning. Once the guides, those who are guiding in the machine learning got exhausted, means if their allocation is done, those guides and those topics will not be available for the remaining students. Okay, so in this manner the allocation will be done in the subsequent round. Okay, we encourage students to do the projects in the various areas. Now coming to the important point, all of you are doing the projects in the DigiStrike. We encourage you to continue that project. Okay, if it is and now if you feel that this project can be extended as a final year project, what you have to do, you have to write a mail to your guide, DigiStrike guide, DigiStrike guide. I hope you know your DigiStrike guide, that we want to continue this project for our final year. These are the additions that we will be doing for the semester 7 and 8. Kindly approve the thing. If the guide is happy, and if he is happy means if he is say that it is okay, then he will approve that project and he will mail you the particular group that your project is approved. You have to forward that mail. You have to forward that mail where the guide has stated कि your project is approved to me. Okay. In that case, this form, you no need to fill this form. Okay. So first in this week, we'll go for the continuation of the DigiStrike project. Okay. You can discuss among yourself. You can discuss this thing with the guide. You can explore the additions that you can do in the DigiStrike project, and then you can forward that thing after approval to me. In that case, you will get a project of your area and the guide who is guiding your DigiStrike project. Okay. Once this formation or this allocation of the groups has been done, then the few formalities you have to complete, no, not few formalities, the regular things you have to complete. This is the logbook. Every week the student has to fill the things. This logbook will be available with the guide. On a given project day, student will report to the guide. They will put their attendance over here, your sign at the incoming time and outgoing time, what you have done in that week, that you will list over here, and according appropriate comments will be there from the guide. So such 13 or 14 weeks report you have to prepare, and this you have to attach at the end of the each semester. Okay. So this is the discussion that I have to do related to as a project coordinator. Now also I would like to say as a project guide in the area of RF design. Students can do the projects in the area of microwave, on filter design, on couplers, power dividers, like this. In this case, you will be using the simulation software such as i3D or CST software available in the college. You can do the simulation for a given problem, maybe for a given cutoff frequency, or maybe for a given attenuation, or maybe for compactness, or maybe for the achieving high bandwidth, broadband of the this device, that you can do. Once the optimization has been done, you can fabricate that project on PCB, and then you can test the project. We have very good equipments. Rod and Shots make VNA. You have a network analyzer, and there you can test the response, and if the results of course will match. So I hope more students will go in the area of microwave and RF design. So that is all from my side. Lakshita, over to you. Hello Lakshita, are you there? Are you listening?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Lakshita, are you there?
Lakshita, are you there? You're not audible.
Yes, sir.
Lakshita, you're not audible.
Yes, sir. You are not audible.
You can go ahead now.
Hello.
Who is next? Sunil sir, I think.
Yeah. I think Venkata and Aarti madam are the next.
Venkata and Aarti madam
yeah,
is there.
yeah.
Related to antenna and microwave. Yes, yes.
Can one of the presenters please mute तरफ माइक चालू है, बहुत नॉइज आ रहा है.
Okay, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
देशमुख
so-
सर तुमचं म्यूट करा, कारण तुमचं इको येतोय.
Okay. So, okay. So we are actually we are having a subject of antennas in your third year. We are already studying that thing. So basically, my domain is based on antennas only. So as you know, we have so many types of antennas like wire antennas, aperture antennas, microstrip antennas, and arrays of the different types of structures. We can go for any of these type of antenna design as your main project, because wherever there is a wireless communication, there comes the this antenna device. So that is a very crucial point device which is important in case of wireless communication. Not only wireless communication, basically we can have in medical applications and wearable technology, smart antennas. Okay, so that based on a particular application, that type of antenna can be designed. So coming to microstrip antennas, you will be studying that in your third year course of antenna and wave propagation. So there are so many variations of microstrip antenna depending on which type of response you want or where you are deploying that particular antenna, whether you want a compact antenna or you want a circularly polarized response antenna, if you want a broadband microstrip antenna. So based on the response and application, we can particular antenna can be fabric design. So initially, as Amey sir mentioned, those softwares, whatever he has mentioned, CST, okay, that can be used for the simulation of the antenna. Once you design that antenna, you will test that antenna by simulation. Once you get that simulated results, that can be fabricated, and using the same network analyzer and spectrum analyzer, whatever Maser has mentioned, using that we can take the measurements of the antenna also within our in our college itself. Okay, so application oriented we can make using this antennas. So don't consider that it is a very difficult subject or something. It is very simple. If you are very much interested, we can go for. And modern tool usage also we are doing in antenna design. If your seniors has already designed using artificial neural network model, modeling of different types of antennas like circular microstrip antenna. And now currently some student 3 groups are working on artificial neural network model for slot cut microstrip antennas for broadband response. Similarly, the same artificial neural network model or some other tools can be used for the modeling of different types of antennas. Okay, so whoever is interested, you can come to me. I can give you a topic based on either microstrip antenna, or if you want to design an antenna for a specific application, that also is welcome. Okay, so that is from my side. Aarti ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Venkata ma'am. Actually, Venkata ma'am has, hope I am audible.
Yeah, ma'am.
Hello.
Please go ahead. Yeah, ma'am, you are audible. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Actually, just now Venkata ma'am has given you the brief introduction or in-depth categorization of microstrip antennas. Let me tell you one thing, you people are just listening now ki artificial neural network, machine learning and all that thing. That is a tool that can be also used for the designing of antenna. Just now whatever she has mentioned that 3 groups are already working on that. Other than that, I would like to mention about the modern technologies like the smart antennas, MIMO, that is multiple input, multiple output. That is nothing but the antennas which are specifically used in IoTs and this mobile communication. Over there, we need the space diversity or polarization diversity. So MIMO is an example of smart antennas over there. Adaptive signal processing algorithms can be implemented for designing of that. So over here, don't get afraid ki antenna is there, how we can work on that. But using this artificial neural network modeling, even adaptive signal processing also, the antenna designing is possible. And all the instruments for the measurement also, for fabrication also, we don't have to go outside. Everything we can do over here. And you can have the... And regarding that fabrication and all that stuff, with respect to the simulation softwares and all these things, we can guide you properly. Okay, so this is from our side regarding the antenna domain. Okay, thank you. Lakshita, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the informative words. We are sure it will be highly beneficial during our project building journey. Next, we have Sunil sir talking about image processing.
Yeah, Lakshita, I hope I'm audible now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes,
so
sir, you are
yeah, thanks. As we've been seeing, machine learning suddenly has become the buzzword, but we as EXTC engineers have to apply these algorithms, and the advantage that EXTC had because of the advent of machine learning was that image processing projects have once again raised their hood, because a lot of work was usually being done around about 2012 2013 in image processing, and then suddenly all the algorithms sort of dried down, and we didn't have any sophisticated algorithms to find out a lot of intricate things in images. But machine learning has helped us to do that, and there are a lot of areas which I'll be covering quickly, right? So first we have some simple stuff where people have projects right from identification of sheep. We are an agriculture country, to identification of the type of apples that we've been growing. So it just automatically classifies the apples, and also where we'll be requiring the texture of the image. And then we go to, from defining the texture of the image, then we go to the machine learning. So it's not directly machine learning as per se. Then we studied encryption in most of our subjects, and for encryption also there are a lot of image processing projects where we managed to hide audio in image and image in image and all the various combinations. Then of course we do a lot of optical character recognition, so where we have license plate recognition and PAN card recognition, and also companies like Deloitte have been using our students, passed out students, to have OCR systems where they can detect checks automatically. And if you go to the State Bank of India portal, which is across the country, you automatically just have to insert your checkbook and put in the re-verify the amount, and the job's done. So we do expect, students have been doing projects like this in image processing. Not very difficult. It's just that we require certain high-ended systems, and we take care of it by using Google Colab. So Google Colab has really helped us, to carry out image processing projects, even though we don't have very, very fast processors. The another area which I would like to cover is the biomedical. So biomedical have a lot of images where you have mammogram images, you have images from the eye retina. A lot of work is being done, and biometrics, of course, has been very. It's a very old field, but now I've been hearing that IIT Delhi is working on biometrics using the ear system. So that, of course, could be a new project where the students can work on. Apart from this, we have a lot of social applications where we have blind assistance systems. We have a lot of systems where we have forensics, where you can identify with the sketch of a person, you can identify what type of person it is. And also in the times of COVID, a project was going on where, face recognition, though a very simple application, has become quite difficult with the masks on. So, how to identify faces when a mask is on. So that was a very in thing which was going on. So these are few of the areas that I've covered in image processing, not necessarily using machine learning, but I think with the advent of machine learning, these things have cropped up once again. And as far as video is concerned, video processing, of course, is quite similar to your image processing. Here what we have few projects where we do object tracking in videos, okay, where we have surveillance cameras. And of course, if you have an entire video, to classify the genre of the video, so if you're watching a movie, so by looking at the snippets of the scene, you can classify whether it is an action movie or it's a comedy movie and so on. So these are some of the topics I've covered, and I've tried to put in sort of marketing by giving you new things which are available in the domain of image processing. It's not a stale version by any chance. You still have a lot of societal and actual applications that we can cover on. That's all from my side. Lakshita?
Thank you so much, Sunil sir, for the enlightening discussion about image processing. Now I'd like to call upon Ranjushri ma'am to discuss signal processing.
Okay, thank you, Lakshita. Amya sir, I request you to stop sharing.
Yes, madam. Wait. Yeah, I have stopped, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So, can you see the screen, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Basically, I will be talking on project ideas in signal processing and AI/ML domain. First, I will talk in the areas of signal processing, and then in AI and ML, and then how we can do signal processing in AI/ML. Okay, so the first goes your signal processing. So signal processing, we can say these are some very minor project areas I have listed down. There are many are there. So first you can do on speech or image compression, then adaptive filtering, noise cancellation, unknown system identification, automatic speaker recognition. These comes under signal processing domain. Okay, so first we will go with speech or image compression. Okay. So as you know that when a speech signal is generated or image is taken, if you see the digital versions of speech, means when you discretize a speech signal, the amplitude of the two consecutive samples are almost equal. Okay. Thus, and if you take an image, if you divide the image in pixels, you will see that the intensity of the nearby pixels are almost the same. Okay, so you can, so both speech and image, when it is generated, consists of lot of redundant data, okay, which can be removed, and which can be removed with very less distortion, and the signals can be regenerated with almost the perceptible qualities of speech is also remains very good. Okay. Image also, the reconstructed image also, you cannot make out that it was a compressed image. You are reconstructing the image. Okay. So one of the ways you can do this speech or image compression is your wavelet transform. That gives a very good result. Previously LPC was also there. Wavelet transform, you can see I have shown you the in the tabular form that if there are 10 signals generated, you can store your own signal in Pratt software. Here there is a Pratt software. This is a completely your open source software. So 10 signals are recorded. And if you see the third column, compression ratio by wavelet transform, if you do wavelet transform on these signals, okay, wavelet transform, you may not know that. If you are interested, we can talk on this much. So wavelet transform, like Fourier transform, there is a wavelet. These wavelets are nothing but small waves. So you have to take these small waves over the whole image or whole signal, and you can compress the original signal. See, if you see the compression ratio is 15:21, 25:1. What do you mean by that? 25 samples of the original signal are compressed to one sample of the after your wavelet transform. And in doing so, you are how much error you are generating? You are generating on the second column. If you see that MSE meaning mean square error, it is 10 to the power -5. So less distortion you are getting. Okay. And on the fourth column, if you see the percentage zeros, meaning the signal consists of 92.98. The first signal, the second signal consists of 95.91% zeros are there. Meaning you see that 100 minus 92.98% only consists of the information content of the signal. So mainly the signal is 92.98%. The signal is redundant, so you can eliminate all these samples. Okay, so there is so highly you can compact the signal. And if you see the last column, the retained energy, so though you are discarding so many samples of the signal, you are retaining 98.73%. Here some of the signals it is above 99%. It depends on signal to signal. So some of the signals is above 99%. You can find out the average. Okay, so it is almost above your 95. In 10 signals it is more than 95%. You are retaining energy, still you are compressing the signal so highly. Also the audible qualities of the signal remains very good. You cannot make out after reconstructing the signal in wavelet transform. So this is a very good this thing your project area. So this is the very basic wavelet transform. You can do other source coding techniques on this wavelet transform to compress it still further, and it has given very good results for other wave whatever I have done with other coding techniques, source coding techniques. Okay, so that there I have got 3 times more compression ratio than this is the basic compression. So 3 times more compression I have found with wavelet plus your so other source coding technique. Okay, so those many areas you can you can research on. Okay, so next is your adaptive filtering. So adaptive filtering, since you are not aware what is the adaptive filter, basic simple I will talk on this. See, previously in your DSP, in your DTSP, we have seen that a filter, FIR filter, if I talk of a FIR filter, what is that? H of n is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the FIR filter, but if you see the coefficients of the filter are 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is a fixed coefficient filter. Okay. So this is a fixed coefficient filter, but adaptive filter may be a FIR filter, may be a IIR filter, but the coefficients of an adaptive filter are variable. Okay, so here if you see that the coefficients, if I have written it is a adaptive FIR filter whose coefficients can be changed depending on the environment. Okay, so you can change the coefficients. Okay, and it adapts in the to the environment. Okay, so depending, if you see the figure, depending on the error, Okay, so what is the error and all that I am coming? So it depends on application to the application. What is YN, what is DN, and what is your EN? So DN is the desired sequence, and YN is the output of the adaptive filter. How they are coming, it depends on application to application. Two applications I will do with you. So this adaptive filtering by the what here you have to understand that adaptive filter is a filter. It can be FIR or IIR, but its coefficients are not fixed. Okay, so there are some techniques or some algorithms are there to find out these coefficients, or to find out these coefficients. How to find out? To reduce the error. Okay, if you can reduce the error, then this Y of n will be equal, almost equal to the desired sequence, and you will get your filter with the desired coefficients. And these two algorithms, the least majority LMS and RLS, least mean square and recursive least square algorithms, are used to find out the reduce the error and find out the coefficients of the adaptive filter. Okay, see, these adaptive filters have a very high applications, and these machine learning, the concept of machine learning has come from this adaptive filter concept, which is long back thing. Okay, so now we will discuss one of the applications of this adaptive filter. You can see that channel identification. Okay, so how it can be used for identifying a channel. Okay, and first I will discuss why how to identify a channel, and then why it is required, why it so much is required to know your channel. Okay, so first, if you use this adaptive filter algorithm to find out a channel, you see that this is the unknown system. This you can take as a channel. You don't know what is your channel. So unknown system, as I told you while teaching, is that knowing a system, meaning knowing the impulse response of the system. So only if you know H of n, you can find out H of z, okay, and H of omega. So if you know the impulse response of the system, you know the poles and zeros, the stability, the frequency response, everything you know of the system. So knowing the system is a big word. It means that you know the impulse response of the system. Okay, so how to know the impulse response of a channel? See, in wireless communication, what happens, when our data is transmitted, so data are transmitted in frames. Okay, so there are start bits, then stop bits. Okay, then synchronization bits, and then there is a part where the training bits are sent along with the unknown data. Are 7-8 bits of training bits are sent. So when you are this x of n, let us say that this x of n is the training bits. Okay, and you know, because the training bits are known to the transmitter and the receiver both. Okay, and then when this so you know this d of n. So when xn is known to you, the training bits, you know what will be the output. Okay, now you have an adaptive filter, okay, but you don't know the impulse response of the system. You know the input and the output. So now how to know the impulse response of this unknown system? The same training bits are fed at the receiver. The same training bits are fed to the adaptive filter. Okay, because the training bits are known both to the receiver and the transmitter. Okay, so adaptive filter. Adaptive filter, what happens, you take the H of 0, whatever I have told you here, arbitrarily, randomly you initialize the coefficients of this adaptive filter, and now you will get some yn. So now this sum yn you compare with your target d of n, there will be a huge error. So what is your duty? By this LMS and RLS algorithm, what it does, it reduces the error between the D and the actual output and you are getting from the adaptive filter. And how to reduce this error? By this LMS algorithm, actually what it does is tunes this H0, H1, H2, H3 so that your coefficients are changing, and depending on the coefficients, your output also is changing and reducing the error. Okay, so this is the, by the way, and when your dn is exactly equal to yn. It never happens exactly equal. There is very, very less, meaning 10 to the power minus 5 error maybe. So that time dn is almost close to yn. And what is the adaptive filter coefficients you are getting? H0, H1, H2, H3. You can tell that the unknown system has the same coefficients. So you know your channel, okay, the wireless communication channel, which is randomly changing. So that's why if you see after certain time intervals, they send the training bits in order to know the channel, know the coefficients of the channel. Now, why it is important for channel identity? Why you want to know the channel? Because you want to remove the noise from the data. Okay, so x of z, when you are knowing your channel at the receiver, you can design 1 by hz. So when you are multiplying h of z into 1 by hz, then your y and x becomes same. Okay, so the input becomes equal to output. So that is very important. If you know the channel, you can design a receiver filter which is exactly the inverse of the channel, and so that in your z domain, you know that when I am multiplying this and this, your becomes 1 and x and becomes y. So this is a very good implementation. You can implement in your MATLAB or Python, anything you can do. Okay. Next is noise cancellation. Okay, so noise cancellation also, if you see that when I am talking in your online lectures and all that, my room is fans or somebody's AC may be on. So along with the voice, the noise of the fan or the ACs are picked up. Okay, so this S of S plus N, okay, so maybe that noise coming, okay, and at the receiver you have another, so you have a AC and you have a fan, but that noise is not matching, to my AC or a fan. Okay, so N and N dash are almost equal, are very much correlated but not same. Okay, not similar. So the signal is corrupted with some noise, and you have at your place at the receiver the same correlated noise which is not equal but have a high level of correlation. So by this, if you feed to the adaptive processor this noise N dash, whatever you are having at the receiver, and by adaptive algorithm, this to reduce the errors is this y, the output of the adaptive processor now becomes almost equal to this n. So n dash will become n. Okay, by this adaptive algorithm, n dash will become n, and then when you subtract n from s plus n, it will give you a clear signal. So this is a demo, actually very it's implemented in Simulink. This is a very in your Simulink, it's not the real, it is my random source, and this thing, this is for the idea why I want to give you that there is a signal and there is a noise in added to the signal, and then how the LMS algorithm is removing the noise from the signal. And not only that, after removing the noise, this is the impulse response of the adaptive processor. So this you can tell that I have designed a system which will remove any kind of noise from the AC or fan or like that, this type of noise which is correlated with the original signal. Okay, so now this is noise cancellation is another way where you can area where you can do your projects. And then I will come with your in your many things are there in signal processing, but okay, let me start with AI ML. Before starting AI ML, maybe people are having concepts, but small. I will want to start with two very basic problems in our real life. Is that the first problem I will state is that there are 5 cities are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities are there. Okay, and there is a salesman who want to travel. Okay, these 5 cities. So the salesman starts from his own city and he has to travel each and every city and come back to his own city. Okay, but in doing so, he will prefer that I will travel less distance at a minimum cost. Okay, so how he is traveling? He will travel. He will travel. So there are so many permutations and combinations of these 5 cities, and not only 5 in India. If you take so huge, millions of cities are there. So if you want to travel each city once, how you want to travel? That I want to minimize the cost and minimize the, if I can minimize the distance, obviously my cost will be reduced. Okay, so this is this is known as an optimization problem in AI. Okay, here is your cost factor, is your distance, and here the cost factor is your distance, and what you do, you minimize the distance. Okay, on the right hand side, if you see that this is a famous knapsack problem, so I will tell you what is it actually. It is there is a thief. Okay, so he has a bag which can carry maximum 15 kgs of your weight. Okay, and there are some items are there. You see 1 2 3 4 5, so 5 items, so many items may be there. So he wants to put what he will want to put maximum valued items and minimum, so that this bag will not break, but I will be having a major profit. Okay, so I will put all the valuable items, and also I have to see that the bag will not break. Okay, so this is these two falls under, these are the meaning, you can understand the optimization problem better with these examples. Okay, so these are known as optimization problem. Okay, this is maximizing the profit and this is minimizing the cost. Okay, so the factor may be maximization or minimization, hence it is known as optimization. Okay, so optimization algorithm is genetic algorithm, then ant colony algorithm, then particle swarm optimization algorithm. So these optimum algorithms you can use to solve these problems. Okay, it is not very easy to solve, because if you see the 100 cities are there. If you want to travel 100 cities, so you have to have factorial 100 combinations of those. Okay, and previous days what you used to do, you used to, for each and every combination you have to find out the distance and then sort it, and that will give you the minimum distance and minimum cost. But if you sit like this, millions of cities, you will take years to complete the formulation, the problem. Okay, so these are techniques like genetic algorithm, SEO, and particle swarm optimization you can implement in milliseconds and give they will give you the output. Okay, now here these optimization algorithms can also be done in your signal processing. Okay, how? Because if you see this, we are here also, we are nothing we are doing. What we are doing, we are finding out the impulse response of this channel. Okay, so how, by this adapting, instead of LMS, RLMS, that this is almost same. You can use genetic algorithm, you can use ant colony optimization algorithm to find out this unknown system. So all your ML knowledge, AI knowledge, what you have can be used for implementing this unknown system, noise cancellation, everything. Okay, so that you can use your AI and ML in your signal processing. And the last thing I want to tell you is that there is another idea. See this, there is it's known as a Bayesian belief network. Okay, it depends on the probability of in whatever you have studied, that Bayes theorem have you studied. So that Bayes, it depends on the Bayes theorem. I don't know this nowadays, the RSA is not there, so whether you know Bayes theorem, that I don't know. So the conditional probability, Bayes theorem, and the conditional dependence and conditional, these are the new terms of improbability, that conditional dependence. The Bayesian belief network depends on the knowledge and concept of your conditional dependence and conditional independence. They are different from conditional probability. Okay, so this network, there are some aspects you have to study this network, and this network is based completely on probability, and the outcome also in terms of probability it will give. So for basic things, there is a model I want to discuss with you. You can apply this in any areas of your electronics and telecommunication. Okay, in signal processing, anywhere you can apply. Okay, so there is a chest clinic is there. Okay, it is in medical this thing. Chest clinic is there, and after 4-5 or 6-7 years of practice, the doctor finds that he calculates the probability. What he calculates? The number of patients coming to those who have come to him, and how many of those patients smoke. Okay, it has been found that 50% of the patients smoke. It has been found that 1% of the patient have TB, and it has been found that 5.5% of the patients have lung cancer, and it is found that 45% of the patients have mild or chronic bronchitis. Okay, so these are found out. Okay, so it's not difficult for long research. You can have to calculate the probabilities. Okay, so many patients are coming, you keep the record and you can make out. Okay, so depending on this, you calculate the probability and make a Bayesian belief network. How it goes? So if you see that here it is given smoking 50%. So if you see smoking is 50-50, okay, and then 1% have TB. So if you see here 1% is having TB and 99% that TB is absent. Okay, 5.5 is having lung cancer, so 5.5 lung cancer is present, the others it is absent. 45 have mild or chronic bronchitis, and others the bronchitis is absent. Also, the doctor has found out that whenever doctor has found out that in his patients, within his patients, the very few of them visit to Asia. It's a model of US, so obviously it is related to other countries, so other continents. So the patients, number of patients visiting to Asia is very less. So 1% is visiting and 99% are not visiting. Okay, and also if you see that tuberculosis cancer is 6.48%, 90. So all these probabilities he has calculated. Okay, so the patients having TB or cancer is 6.48, 93.5, and out of the patients X-ray results, 11 are abnormal, 99% are these are on percentage. So 11% are abnormal, 89 is normal, and dyspnea is a very difficult breathing trouble. Okay, so 43.6 are having that breathing trouble, and 56.4 are not having breathing trouble. Okay, so this is a chest clinic related to that. The doctor has calculated. You have to calculate according to your data. Okay, anywhere you can apply this model. Now, what happens in the clinic? A patient comes with very difficulty in breathing. So dyspnea is very high, 100%, meaning the patient is having severe breathing trouble. So you put in this box, you put 100. So it is sure that she is having a breathing difficulty. But as soon as if breathing, if you put 100%, you see that there is a strong jump of the bronchitis from 83.4. अच्छा 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 ठीक है यार 2 मिनट हो गया हाँ. So you can like this you can, so actually there is IBM lectures are there, so I have to wrap up. So you can develop this your model depending on the probability. Okay, so the bronchitis is very high. Now if you see that your visit to, now there are questionnaires are there where the patient is told to tick mark whether she has visited Asia. So if you tick mark this, then what happens? Then your visit to Asia becomes 100%, and you see that the tuberculosis is present, has increased thora, but still bronchitis has remained the prevalent weakness or disease. Okay, so like this, when you are again, if you put smoking, you are having a questionnaire and you have told her to tick mark whether she smokes or not. If yes, then again if you see that this whole model is changing. Okay, so the depending on the probability. Okay, so last May, what you see that with this these three parameters, the doctor can tell that it is bronchitis. Okay, not a lung cancer or tuberculosis. But still the lung cancer, tuberculosis are somewhat high, then the doctor will say that do a X-ray result. Okay, X-ray. Okay, but because it's a human being, he will not take chance. So do a X-ray. Now when X-ray results are normal, so you see that TB and lung cancer are zero, almost zero, while the bronchitis is very high. And if the X-ray results are abnormal, then you see that both lung cancer and tuberculosis are very high, and there are some other parameters you have to deal, like your biopsy and all that, so that you can conclude. So you have to do like this a model for AI, the Bayesian belief network. Okay, so these are some of the things I want to tell you. Okay, so I am over now. I will get back to Lakshita.
Thank you so much, Ranjashri ma'am, for the informative words. It will surely help us. Next, I would like to call upon Shivani ma'am to introduce us to the topic related to IoT.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Shivani, go ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon. I'll be talking about IoT and related projects. So this IoT is a buzzword and it was coined by Kevin Ashton in 1999. So first question that comes in mind, why we are talking so much about IoT? Because in an environment, everything and everyone is connected to internet. So IoT makes everyday objects smart by enabling them to transmit data, automate tasks without requiring any manual intervention. An IoT could be as simple as a health tracking wearable smartwatch or as complex as a smart city with sensors. Now, features of IoT like connectivity, things, the sensors that are connected, data, communication, intelligence, action, and ecosystem. So you can work on any of these features. And with the advent of 5G and the increase in data rate, the IoT devices are able to connect to the internet, and IoT is developing at an astonishing speed, and 5G is expected to be 10 times more faster than the current LTE. And you can do projects like home security, smart farming, weather reporting, face recognition bot, smart garbage door, smart alarm clock, smart parking, hospital management system, inventory management, home automation. And Amazon is following this, using this inventory management using IoT, and currently your BE projects are in hospital management and inventory management system, and they have done a good work. And exactly last year, 1 year back, Panasonic launched a range of smart devices like smart air conditioner, smart washing machine, smart refrigerator, called as Mirai. So there is a lot of scope in this IoT related projects. I hope you all will be able to do good projects under this IoT. Thank you so much. Lakshita, now over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now Poonam ma'am will talk about
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
I'm audible, right? Okay, thanks, Lakshita. So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to tell you about kind of projects that can be taken up under VLSI domain. You see, VLSI circuits are present in every gadget that we use these days. So VLSI design concepts can actually be applied to any field. Let it be related to computer, hardware device, requiring computer networking. For example, UART, which is used for asynchronous serial communication, or let it be processor design, or any other communication circuit design. For example, anything related to modulation techniques, QPSK, or any other modulation technique, or FFT design. All these designs can be done in VLSI under VLSI domain. Now, coming to implementation of VLSI circuits, basically, if you see, whole VLSI can be divided into two major categories. We have front-end design and we have back-end design. Now, what is there in front-end design? Usually, those circuits which are designed, the circuits that are involved in the front-end design are basically designed using some kind of higher level languages. For example, the very common languages which are used in designing VLSI circuit is Verilog and VHDL. So you can design various circuits based on using these Verilog or VHDL. So in these kind of designs, basically the coding for the circuit complete system is done using these software tools, software languages. And then this complete software is burnt into programmable logic device IC. Okay? So in our college, we have FPGA and CPLD kit. So if you go with this front-end design process, which basically involves design and verification of your system, which is designed using software languages, you can later on burn this software in the hardware and the IC, and you can check the results later on. So this is one way of doing VLSI project. Second way is, as I said, back-end design. Now here normally you require concept of MOSFETs. Okay, so when you have to design using in this back-end, basically it involves designing using transistors, and then you see how they are laid on the chip. So placement and routing comes in the picture. You do the layout of the system, you simulate the system, and then you do post simulation after placement and routing of the transistors on the IC, and then you verify. So this post verification is done. Okay, so this is second way of going through the VLSI circuit design. So these are the two approaches that you can use. Either you can work with languages like Verilog and VHDL, or any other hardware descriptive language to describe the circuit in VLSI circuit, or you can go with this transistor design. Okay, so you use transistor and you make the circuit, and then you see to it that your circuit is meeting the specification, required specification. Now, most of the what are the topics, what area, when we go for backend design, what are the major things that we see? Normally, if you see, there are three constraints that every VLSI designer has to face. That is, to design the circuit utilizing minimum area, to have a very fast speed, high speed circuit, and to have circuits which will require or which will use very less power. So low power consumption circuits. So most of the circuits that are designed in this VLSI domain, all the circuits, these are the three, constraints or areas looking into which the circuits are designed. So, and you know that there is always trade-off between these. It is not possible to achieve all these, constraints together in one circuit. So you can either select a topic targeted to high-speed designing, wherein you can use various techniques which can increase the speed of VLSI circuit. There are lots of techniques. You can include BCVS logic, you can include Vedic mathematics, or any other high-speed technique, and you can realize a circuit. Okay. Similarly, if you want to work or make some project which will ensure that low power is consumed by the circuit, then you can go with other techniques. Like there are two kinds of powers, static and dynamic power. So depending upon what is your liking, in which field you want to work on, there are lots of techniques in both the categories. So depending upon what you want to do, for what application you want to design the circuit, you can select the technique, you can apply them and get the circuit, make the circuit and verify them. So this is, overall what is done in under VLSI project. So that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Poonam ma'am, for enlightening the discussion. Now I would like to call upon Sanjay sir to discuss on embedded systems.
Good afternoon, all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Today I will talk on about the V project orientation in embedded system domain. As you third year student, most of the third year students familiar with the word embedded system. Embedded system is nothing but a dedicated system which which does the one single function repeatedly. Embedded system words come from the fact that here the computing systems is embedded or it is hidden in the main systems, and computing systems that control and perform the overall operation of the embedded system is not visible to the end user. So when we want to do the project in embedded systems, so here the embedded system projects widely range in the difficult levels depending upon the embedded system is a simple standalone embedded systems, or it is a network embedded system, or it is a real-time embedded systems. So depending upon the what embedded system application we choose for the projects, so that decide the difficulty level as well as the hardware requirement. So in embedded systems, there are two aspects. One is hardware and second one is software aspect. So embedded systems are application specific, means their hardware are unique. So for every embedded system, for every product, the hardware is specific, that is hardware is unique. So in hardware, here we have mechanical structures, here we have computing systems and associate circuitry. And in software aspect, here we have a language, what language we are going to use to burn into the read-only memory. So for programming aspect, we can use the assembly language, we can go for the high-level language. But nowadays, what happens for fast software development and the debugging purpose, so everybody go for the embedded C higher language options. When we want the when we have the stringent time constraint, or when we want to perform the operations within a very short times, so in that case only we can prefer the assembly language. So for embedded system projects needs the following things that depends upon the what type of embedded system projects we opt. So some embedded system require more mechanical part and machining. So that in that case, here the AFTC students can take the help of their mechanical engineer friends, or they with the help of 3D printer, they can design or fabricate the structure which is required for the embedded project, and then whole focusing can be put on the controlling part or the operational part. That is the one thing that we require. Second, in some embedded systems needs the extensive computational power. Means here it has to perform lot of computations. Suppose the signal processing algorithms or DSC algorithms within the very short time, within the given very stringent deadlines. So for that purpose, we require the high-end microcontroller. For example, one can opt the 32-bit ARM-based microcontroller for the extensive computational requirement for the embedded systems. Third one, some embedded systems require the minimal computational power. Means the computational requirement processing is not required. But what is important? Here the power consumption should be less, and the system should be compact. So in that case, we can use the normal microcontroller such as the PIC microcontroller from Microchip, or one can go for the AVR microcontroller, or depending upon the microcontroller that suit for the applications. Okay. One more thing is that when we select the microcontroller or any computing device for the embedded systems, the first of all we have to check the availability of that microcontroller or the computing device, whether it is available in the market, what is the cost of that microcontroller or the computing device, whether the software is free or whether it is open source. That here we have to check when we go for the when we select the microcontroller. Sometimes what happen, nowadays here we are era of what artificial intelligence or machine learning or neural networks, and that provide the what here that provide the more intelligence in the systems. That systems becomes what here independent. It works autonomously without any human interventions. So in that case, what happen? So we need to run the several what here neural network we have network that requires so much training of the data or any sort of the artificial intelligence algorithms. Okay, so in that case, the one can go for the what here the embedded Linux computer board, and I think you are familiar with the one of the board. That board is the Raspberry Pi board. Raspberry Pi board is nothing but it is a mini computer. Okay, with the GPIO that can be used to process the neural networks training the data or the any artificial or machine learning algorithms that can be easily implemented if we go for the Raspberry Pi board or such type of board. That you have to search in the market or the in the market. So whether the such type of boards are available or not that supports the AI ML or similar kind of what here intelligence we can incorporate it in the embedded systems. Sometimes what happen, so along with the computer such as Raspberry Pi board, we need to use the microcontrollers. So here the computer that employ in the embedded system that take the care of the algorithms executions. But to take the action, suppose for example to switch on the relay, switch off the relay, or motors or buzzer, or take the any control actions, so in that case we can use the microcontrollers. So here the what type of hardware and its software, it totally depends upon the what type of application we choose for the BE projects. So here I just put some ideas, embedded system project ideas. The only few are there. So one is here you are familiar with the self-driven car. The self-driven car model. Suppose the assumption is that it has the smart steering mechanism. So in that case, the one can take the use the camera, take the images, pictures of the road curvature to find out the direction and magnitude of the steering action required to keep the car on the same track. And secondly, what happen for this case? What happen here? We have to train the the system, to train the computing systems. So for that purpose, we can use the local PC and train the neural network model for the prediction of the prediction of the road curvature or whatever the things that is convenient for the self-driving. So here after training and by taking the capturing the images and the processing or image processing, so that can be deployed on the Raspberry Pi board. Okay, now this is the only idea. This is not an implementation. Second, here the sound source localization. Suppose here we have a small robot and that small robot does not have to be moved. And so when we speak with that robot, that what happens, the head of that robot, it should be rotated when we talk with the robot. So here it should recognize from where the voice is coming, and after that we can add the necessary intelligence in the robot to perform the necessary work or the required work. Then some other embedded project idea may be the the vending machines. Nowadays you are familiar with the vending machines, chocolate vending machine or tea vending machines. So in that vending machine means here it accept the coins or some similar kind of the money, and then it serve the products. So in that case, we can add the AI ML, we can add the intelligence that find out whether whatever the coins that enters into the vending machine is correct or not, or whether the product is sufficient in the vending machines. So that kind of feature we can also include in the vending machine. Then one more idea can be here we can display the spectrum of the given signal with the help of, suppose for example, FFT fast Fourier transform, and then that we can display onto the screen and do the necessary spectrum analysis. So that's about the few ideas that can you implement or that can use in your BE project. So that is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the enlightening words. Now we have Archana ma'am who will discuss about networks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a second.
Sir, आपने कुछ-
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you about what are the different possible projects in wireless network. When we talk about wireless network, there are not a single network or single idea, but there are different types of network which actually exist, like mobile networks, Bluetooth, Zigbee, RFID, UWB, WLAN, WSN. So these are few of the networks that we can use for our project. Actually, when you go for project, there you will get two types of, or rather I would categorize it into two categories. One is your core projects and other is application project, or you can say the applications using these networks. So basically core project means what, where you actually modify some kind of protocol or something, then it goes to core project. And application means you will use any of these network and you will develop some application. Okay, so I am just I have just listed few of the topic. Actually there are many possible projects can be there in different areas. But then few of them I have mentioned here. I have mentioned some core areas in WSN as this is very, this is particular network which I am interested in. So few topics just I will read out. Coverage and connectivity in wireless sensor network, clustering in wireless sensor network. Actually, see, wireless sensor network is Shivani ma'am has already explained you about IoT. So when you go with IoT and wireless sensor network, both are kind of overlapping areas. In both the cases, sensors are used for communication, and you know that in most of the project you are using sensors to collect the data. Okay, now when I say core areas, wireless sensor network doesn't have any standard, so it is kind of application specific. You can use different protocols for data collection, you can use different protocols for routing, etc. Okay, so there is a scope to work upon those particular protocols and make them better for your application. Okay, so core areas, it means you will work in those areas. But then being a BE student or undergraduate students, I would just I would just tell you to not go for core areas, but to go with the applications. So just I will read out. If you are interested, you can contact me and then I will explain you about all these areas in detail. So first one is coverage and connectivity in wireless sensor network, then clustering in wireless sensor network. In wireless sensor network, actually various nodes are used for collecting the data. So how they are clusters and how they form cluster and how they collect data, you can work upon that. Data aggregation in wireless sensor network, energy efficient MAC protocol in wireless sensor network. Actually sensors are having their own power, so generally they are battery operated, so energy is very crucial point in case of wireless sensor network. We have to, so whatever the protocol we are using, that should be energy efficient, otherwise no use of the those kind of protocols. So you can work upon that. Mobility management in wireless sensor network, security attacks in wireless sensor network. There are actually, in case of WSN, the attacks, possibility of attack is more as compared to other network. This is one of the very this could be one of the very important area where you can work. Deployment strategies in wireless sensor network, energy efficient routing protocols in wireless sensor network. Now these are some core areas where you can work but all of them are related with WSN. Likewise, it can be there with respect to other networks works, like if you go with mobile network, if we talk about 5G, then again with respect to different protocols, you can work, or you can work on handoff strategies or something like that. So those are some core areas. Then application using wireless network. Now nowadays, actually in third year also, when you are doing some project in DJ Strike and all of you are using these networks like Zigbee, then RFID, then Bluetooth, GPS, GSM, etc. Okay, so using these networks, you can have many applications. Now, see, this is not the end. There are so many different possible applications are there. You can explore more on this, and you can find out some kind of application. First, you will have to identify in which particular network you want to work. Like if you want to work in with GSM, GPS, Zigbee, क्या आपको use करना है, that you first decide, and then you find out the different possible projects in those particular areas. Okay, so few of the projects I have just listed here, that is automated intelligent traffic control system using Zigbee. Actually, this is one of the title, but my group has already worked on this traffic control system. They were using GPS and GSM for that. Wireless patient body monitoring system using Zigbee. You can have, see here Zigbee is mentioned, depending on the application, you can use any other network as well. RFID based library management system, people are working for this also, on this project also. But then it is not something like people are working on this, then you cannot work on the particular project. You can make it better by adding some new features to it. Intelligent accident identification system using GPS and GSM. Bluetooth telehealth, household security, industry safety realization by Android smartphone. Wireless earthquake alarm system for early warning. Real-time water quality measurement system based on GSM. Soil moisture content based automatic motor pumping for agriculture. One of my group has already worked on soil content project. So this is also possible. Implementation of railway automation system with sensor network. So these are few of the areas where you can work when it goes to wireless network. So this is all from my side. If you are interested, you can come to me, talk to me. I will give you more idea about what kind of project would be possible. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing the information. I would like to ask HOD sir to conclude the orientation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you to all the faculty members for giving and enlightening all our students for the final year project. See, as Ameya sir has mentioned in the beginning, the department policy for the projects, because we want the projects to be done in all domains of the department. It should not be just a one domain which the projects are getting into. We want all the domains to be justified so that the students also learn and the department also grows. So as Ameya sir has told you, that policy is very clear. Whatever project topics the faculties will be floating, some of them have already shown few topics. For example, Archana madam has shown some topics in the end, what current students are working on, and what past students are, or what probable topics which are there. So all the faculty members will float their topics and allotment will be done. You have to give your choices as explained by Ameya sir. And remember, after you give your choices, faculty members will be selecting the groups from them. So neither the HODs are allotting any group to any faculty member, neither Ameya sir as a project coordinator. So the complete 100% transparency is there from the student to the faculty members for allotting their topics. So now the topics will be floated by Ameya sir, and you will be giving the topics. And it will be good that many of the DJ Strike projects also gets converted for the final year project, because that is the really thought process behind DJ Strike that the continued learning should happen. So if good number of DJ Strike projects are there, and as Ameya sir told you what kind of a email requirement and what kind of a consent the guide has to give, then you can continue on the same topic under the same guidance of the faculty member. So here I think we conclude the orientation. I thank the entire IIT-SF committee for organizing this event. I thank Deshmukh sir also for the same. And I hope students must have got a lot of inputs from this almost 1.5 hour session. You are actually attended your lectures, and after that you are attending, I suppose you have IBM lectures also after this. So it's a taxing sessions for you, but hope you will get some inputs from the entire orientation and it will be beneficial. So now Ameya sir will put the details about the timeline in the MS team which is created, and kindly all the students should respond to that, form the groups and give the topics accordingly. So I thank everyone for this project orientation. Thank you. We can conclude the session now.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much all the teachers for guiding us in the project.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, I just had a small doubt. I could not hear towards the end. There was some technical issue. So I just had a doubt. Please, can I go with that? Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Sir, I just wanted to know that the topics that the faculty would be floating in their domain, can we come up with a topic of our own choice in that domain, or is it necessary to select from those only?
Related, see here, I will be also putting the domain, okay, faculty domain. Some faculty will also float the actual topic, some faculty member will put the domain. So in such case, if you select that domain, the particular topic you can discuss with the faculty member.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Suppose some faculty members have put AI ML like this 1B or maybe somewhat like that. Then you can select that one, and then the specific topic that you want to do, that you can discuss with the faculty member.
Okay, sir.
But the area will be decided by the faculty member. Okay.
Okay, sir. And the topics floated, if we give our choices for the floated topics, then the allocation would also be done by the faculty only, right?
Yeah, that respective faculty, huh? Not by project coordinator or head of the department, by the respective faculty. Okay.
Sir, is it on a first come first serve basis?
No,
or,
it is not on a. It is not on a. I am clearly saying it is not on a first come first serve basis. It is not on first come first serve basis. Okay. All the forms that are submitted within the deadlines for a particular topic, for a particular faculty member, will go to that particular faculty member. He will select the faculty, particular group. Okay. It is not on a first come first serve basis, but of course your submission should be before the deadline.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Any other query?
No, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we can end up the meeting. Okay. Deshmukh sir, end the meeting. Deshmukh sir.
Hello, Ameya sir.
Yeah, end the meeting.
Oh, now this is the end of the meeting. You can leave.
Yeah. Deshmukh sir, attendance download करा. Attendance
download केले.
केली ना, ठीक है. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
उनके अंदर का डिस्टेंस कम सर्कल का जो साइज है वो कम ज्यादा होता है, तुम लोग सर्कल का साइज कम ज्यादा करोगे तुम्हारा गियर रेशियो चेंज होगा और